Hey guys, what's up? It's Dynasty from the Mountaintops. This is Mickey. We have Jimmy here as well. Say hi, Jim.
Hey, how are you? Good job telling me what to do.
Yeah, always. And then we have a special guest today, someone who we've known for seems like ever. I think so. I think Jim, someone who just started Dynasty with us. Jeremy, how you doing today, man?
Hey guys, thanks for the invite. Happy to be here. Doing well.
Like what, 25 years, something like that?
Yeah, guys, when we were in our prom parties, I slept on Mickey's living room floor senior year.
True.
Yeah, it was our prom parties, man.
All sleeping on the same floor, and I think Megan's.
Was it Megan's?
Megan or Amy?
Something like
It was
that.
a good group. Jim Changle was there. It was a good group.
You guys got better memories than me, that's for sure. So go through the lineup real quick today. Obviously, we're going to talk to Jeremy about kind of his mindset through the draft, what his current outlook is, and what he's looking towards the future. Pick his brain a lot since he's here today, as well as current trades as we do every week. And the mindset behind those, we got a couple of them.
Massive one on my end again.
Jimmy just keeps knocking these things out of the park for us. I think he's doing it on purpose to make our podcast make sense. And then we got a strategy session talking about trading, how we trade, what we look for, and little hint is to know your customer a little bit as well. Hopefully we have time for all that. But first off, Jeremy, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your fantasy or dynasty experience.
Sure. I've been in the football fantasy world, and I'll probably say 6 years now. I've been experiencing the dynasty realm for about 3. I did not know anything about the dynasty aspect until my friend Jim got into a startup dynasty 3 years ago. Not Jim, I'm sorry, Tom. I'm talking to Jim. My buddy Tom got me into the dynasty.
It's always on your mind. It's okay.
That's what it is, yes. So he got me into it, but I was kind of skeptical on how the whole process was going. So I ended up being a co-commissioner for him and kind of followed him throughout the first inaugural year for that dynasty league. Ugly situation happened. There was a lot of collusion internally, and they ended up losing 2 teams in the first year. And then I ended up liking that dynasty aspect enough that I grabbed one of those teams. So I've been in it for 3 years. I'm now in 4 dynasty leagues. I do not do redraft at all. I've gone solely committed to the dynasty format. The league I took over, I blew up the roster internally, and I am now the defending champ. So, I'm running with that title there. So I was able to flip that in 2 years.
I have a big question for you. So how do you play? Like, I know me, like I'm much more about, like, I don't make player bets. I'm much more like any trade I do, it's all about what can I do next? Like, I'm all about value and process and, flexibility. I know Mickey's much more about, he makes bets on players. He follows his heart to stomach.
This is what I follow most of the time.
Yeah. And you watch college and you're like, I just like that player. You kind of go that way too.
Yeah.
So just kind of
Okay,
curious, how do you play?
If this is how we're going to go, then I'm going to go completely on the spectrum of Mickey. I do tend to get player crushes. I either, for any reasons, if they won me a particular bet, or they have a certain connection to a certain player, or it could be a situation where I watch an ESPN college football segment and a guy has a connection with me, or his brother had cancer, when there's something like that, he has a good backstory. So there's always some reasons, so I do have some connections to players and or teams. I'm a Michigan State fan, so I tend to like my Spartans coming out of the gate. Jalen Reed, I have 2 stocks on him. So I tend to do have player crushes. When it comes to the college football, I kind of tend to see myself as a casual fan of college over pros, just because I follow the pros so in depth. So, but I do tend to follow college right around this time, right when the games are getting good, the ball time's going, and that's where I start following certain players and certain scouts and everything like that. But I really don't focus too much on my in particular rookie draft until about the combine. Honestly.
Yeah, I basically like the Leonardo DiCaprio of the dynasty world, where as soon as a player gets over like 24, I'm done with them.
Oh, nice. I see. I'm a mix. I don't like the redraft approach. I don't like redrafts now that I've had dynasty, but I still tend to take somewhat of a redraft approach. My current championship team has a bunch of old, is a bunch of young, a bunch of middle, I'm making trades for old. I'm making trades for young in that league, kind of just making a nice smorgasbord of age spatter.
And I feel like that's where Dynasty's going more and more, is that I think it's turning into like redraft light, where it's like people live more week to week versus, I know when I first got into it 6 years ago, it felt much more like, okay, I have a 3-year plan and that's okay. Now it's like a 3-year plan, you're too late to the game. Like I feel like Dynasty has like the speed of it, of like you have to get from A to B, or if the player doesn't perform in a few weeks, then it's like the player's out, they're done, that they lose value. Like it's crazy how fast Dynasty has evolved in just a short amount of time.
I agree, and the way that it kind of plays into the way that I look into it is I like the way that you use it as like a redraft light, in the sense that I do make these trades, but when I do make these trades, I do take that hesitation in regards to, okay, how's this going to impact me in the long run? And if I'm going to trade for, say, Tyler Lockett, what's my wide receiving core look like? Do I have at least 2 or 3 young guys that I know are going to fill in, or anything on those lines? Like today, I actually traded for Calvin Ridley, and now I know that I have those wide receivers. I do have youth in my wide receivers, and with Puka returning and everything like that, I know that this is a situational, temporary move for me because my current higher situation is hellacious.
So the one thing I wanted to know, and me and you are going to be very, very similar on almost everything, is what it sounds like. And I wouldn't call it player crushes for me. It's more along the lines of like, I like players, but I see what they do in college, such as Kenneth Walker. And people were like down a little bit on Kenneth Walker, and I didn't understand why. And if I had a chance, I would have jumped on him, but he was taken before I had a chance. Or Jameson.
I mean, he was also going with the 103 in drafts that year too, so like he was also very high that year.
Yeah, but I had him higher than Brees, which
I did too, but I mean, he was a Spartan. I mean, nevertheless.
Well, yeah, that's a little biased for you, right? Absolutely. And I have my bias as well, because I made a huge mistake on Kenny Pickett from Pitt. In the first dynasty, or in our first rookie draft. Speaking of draft, what I wanted to ask you was kind of like, what's your starter draft mindset going in? Since we just started the golf league, because I have a feeling that it kind of flipped mid-season or something.
Yeah. For the golf league, it kind of had several approaches as the season went. So, as I mentioned, the one league that I'm the defending champion, I did not do any type of draft in that. I built that up from trades and moving that around. This season, I actually got into 3 startups, and all 3 were different. One, I was the commissioner in itself. It's a 10-team super flex, 1 quarterback. One, I started with golf, which is the 14 team, which was an opportunity I really wanted to take advantage of, because that's my biggest league that I've been a part of. And then I have another one where it's a 2 QB. So it's like a hybrid mix of like all these different types of leagues in these 3 startups. When I was approaching the one league that I am currently tanking in, I approached that with that intent to tank. So I am not a fan of my teams that I solely run personally of drafting to trade. I know you referenced that in previous pods. I'm not the biggest fan of that. So I approached it solely in the one league. The other league is the league I was running in, where I kind of wanted to take, I don't want to say a gentle approach, but I have a lot of individuals in this league that are new to Dynasty. So I kind of drafted more on a youth aspect and players that I'd like, such as the Jalen Reeds, player crush previously, T. Higgins. So I drafted some of the guys who I necessarily liked, but I wasn't going in to swing the sledgehammer, if you will, because I know I was going in there with a little bit more of a nervous group. The 14 team was a complete whim. I was going to go in there and try to grab as much shoes as I could. I liked the aspect. This was the only draft I've had where I was able to draft defenses and kickers and swap them out for the rookie picks. So I kind of wanted to incorporate that because I did want to get an essential group of rookies. I was then approached by Jim, who offered to do a first-round pick where he would take my pick, and we did a bunch of first, second, third-round picks. Ultimately, I lost my first-round pick, so I wasn't picking a quarterback until late second. I ended up getting Jared Goff, who I obviously still carry today, and it ended up being successful for me. But that 14-1, once I made that trade with Jim, I kind of had that draft mindset and kind of approaching it as it flowed. I wanted to draft competitive. I wanted to get into it competitive. I think I had a really good roster, and I was kind of surprised that my start was so slow, not going to lie. But I feel that draft approach, having the size that it was, in having the slow draft approach that draft actually had, I kind of went on a whim where it was the next 5 people ahead of me. Okay, who's up ahead of me the next 5? That's when I started looking. I don't do any type of mock drafts. I really don't think those. I think those are on a whim. I think it's just all situational, and it takes one person. Go ahead.
That's how you play, right? You say you follow your guts, you follow who you like. So
Yes.
that's, you know, and
Yeah.
and that makes sense. So it sounds like you're also very flexible too. You know, that's how I think, you know, I kind of play, and Mickey too. Like, we're not afraid to tear it down, sell if it's not working, and buy pieces when we need to if we're, you know, on the fringe. So it's like we're all very similar in that.
I agree, 100%. Each league is in its own situation right now. I'm a defending champion one. I'm a tanking one. I'm a rebuilding one. So it makes it all fun. And ultimately, that's why I do this. This is a fun aspect. It's a stress reliever. And if I'm going to keep myself busy and keep myself active with it, why not enjoy it?
Absolutely. So me and Jimmy, we kind of talked about this before, like what our outlook is on the golf league, the one that we're all in together. And obviously I'm in the middle. I have no idea what my team is right now, because 3 and 4, but 3rd in points. So it's weird.
I think you're going to be all right. I think you're going to make it. You just need a chip and a chair, and I think you have a chip and a chair.
Yeah. Jimmy obviously is the worst team, which is great
Yes.
that I'm playing them this week. Woohoo.
I don't know how else to build. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to build.
Yeah, he originally said, okay, I'm taking 2 quarterbacks. I'm going for it this year. And then I traded him for Pacheco, and he was like, all right, I'm taking this year.
Yeah, I have no idea what the approach was, because that's why he traded me initially. He wanted to get himself on top of the quarterbacks and do whatever. Now we have 17 quarterbacks and a wide receiver. I have no idea what's going on.
Hey, I have
One
3
starts.
receivers now. I have 3 receivers.
But only 1 quarterback starts, though.
Yeah, it's
No, 2 quarterback starts.
Not anymore.
Well, yeah, now I traded one, which I'm still, I don't know. I still feel, I still struggle with the trade.
I was going to ask Jim, would you go back and make that trade with me?
Yes.
You would. You don't regret going top heavy the quarterbacks. It's the middle
No,
of the pack.
I still think my philosophy made sense. I mean, the issue is I got impatient. I became slutty for draft picks again. I
Which
just
is
can't say no to a
always
good
the
draft pick. I can't say no to a good time in a draft pick. Because my issue is, and Mickey and you and I have talked about this, I don't know how to build with everything being even. I don't know how to win that way. And when you leave a draft when everyone's building the exact same way, I don't know how to win, because all at the end of the day, all I have is 3 first that I can wield some power with. And yes, I could do that and mortgage my entire future, but I don't know how good my team's going to be. And that's where I struggle. I don't know how to win just coming out of a draft strong. I don't know how that happens.
And Jim, this is where we completely differ, as we've talked about, where I play it more like a redraft strategy as well, where I'm going to let other people draft my players for the future and not worry about the draft as much. If I have draft picks, that's only because I sold people in the offseason, or if I'm losing. Like last year, I thought I had a good team. Injuries killed me. I ended up selling some players such as Etienne, Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams things look really bad right now. Originally, it looked great, but now not so much. But those are things that the only way that I'm ever going to have a pick is it's never going to be mine, because I'm selling those to get better. Like the first 2 years, you've seen that. And this year, I sold absolutely everything. I think I have a 4th left in both leagues.
For me, it's all about making bets. All I ever need is one other first to get into that top 4, top 3, top 2, and I've won. I don't know if it will happen this year, but like the way it's trending, like in 26, I have Jeremy's 1st round pick, which he's tanking right now. I have Knickers, who said she might tear it down after this year. Fallon, who currently is the 102 of this year. So there is a world out there where I could have the 101 through 104 in 26.
There's no way anything can happen. I am not tanking, sir.
You're not winning. So yeah.
I'm retooling.
Okay, you retool and it goes south. I've won that bet. So
I will make sure that pick is
okay. Well, out of spite, it sounds like. But that's my point, though. Is like I need to make bets. I feel like I could spend other people's first better than they can, and that's how I build a team. Like you know me, I don't like a lot of players because I like hope, and and you can get me on hope. That's where my blind spot is. I regret the trade. I wish I would have kept 2 quarterbacks because I think I could have built. I could be much further along in a year. So I think it's tricky part. But I think if you make a trade and you feel iffy, then it's probably a good trade for both sides. I blew up my entire plan, and that's what I don't like, and that's where I struggle.
You have no problem. I've noticed this. You have no problem on retooling your plan.
Yeah.
If you see something that's of value in your opinion, which, I mean, I think you got the better end of the deal in the trade. And again, we're going to talk about the trade in just a second here for Jalen Hurts. But and we'll probably lead off with that, Jim, just so you know.
I'm ready.
If you find that value, you're like, okay, I had two quarterbacks, but now I have one and a bunch of picks. I can go out and get a quarterback with those picks, or I can draft one for the future. You're not going to be ready in this league for 2 years, maybe 3.
No, and that's where I'm mad at myself, because I think there was a world where I could make the playoffs next year. I mean, maybe that was, again, hopium, and I will fall into that trap too much sometimes. But, like, if I would have had Mahomes and Hurts with Amon and Rashid Rice and adding four more first, I think I could have had a great starting lineup. I would have had zero depth. I would have had to do some other things, but I think I could have. I think I could have liked my team. Now I'm chasing quarterback, which I still believe is going to be super hard to find in a 14-team league. Luckily, I'll have the 101 for the 25. And I agree with you. I think that's where I'm mad at myself, is that I went from I think I could compete in 25 to now it's 26.
Maybe 26. Yeah. I mean, your wide receiver core is young enough though that you
great. And I'm going to add, and I'm going to probably add Ashton Jeanty unless people want to throw more first at me like dollar bills, and I would just say yes, because I don't make bets on players. I don't care. Like I lose Ashton Jeanty, who should be the 1-on-1 next year. I don't care, because I if it's value, great. I always felt like I get more picks. I'm processed because then I could go spend a second and third, go buy whoever I want. I know, like I'm already thinking about, okay, I have Mahomes. Hey, you know what? Jared Goff on Jeremy's team next year. If I need a quarterback, I can go that route now. Like I think I could go buy, I'm not going to have 2 stud quarterbacks, but now I'm going to, like you said, be flexible. Now I'll have Mahomes for now. Most likely I'll trade him now. Or I'll go have Mahomes and go buy a second quarterback and then build a roster out that way too. So I have options. I have flexible. My brain works in mysterious ways where I can always, your wife and I were trying this trade for a couple of weeks now. We were hitting our heads against the wall. We took a break and then we found a way forward, and that's how my brain usually works.
So since we've been talking about this trade, Jeremy, you saw the trade, right?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to jump into that part here. Yeah. Jim, if you want to say what the trade is, what the trade was, slowly, so we can understand it, because it's insane.
It's a monster, yeah.
And then, Jeremy, if I can get your thoughts first.
Okay. So I traded Jalen Hurts and Kenny Pickett and a second and a third. That was the other opponent's second and third. That's something new I've been trying to do, is I try to trade people back their picks because I feel like I could get more value in return for that. So that's something I've been trying.
Speaking from experience from a trade that I did in this league, getting my first back was the tiebreaker from 2 trades that were very even. So I will support that, because then you have your own control and destiny.
Yeah, so I traded. I think you actually said that last week, that you try to do that because you can get more value out of it because people.
Yes. Correct.
And I got back 2 first of hers, so 26 and 27. I already owned her 25 first, or it would have been 3 first. I got Puka, who should be coming back this week, 2 seconds and a third. And I wanted to make sure to get Mickey your second in 25, because I was realizing that I had 4 first in 25, but I had no picks until the 4th round. So I believe that second round pick would give me a lot of flexibility during the rookie draft.
Well, that second's going to be 23 or 24, so
But it's fine. But my goal was I also have a first that's trending late, so I could see myself easily packaging that second and that first to either go buy a player or move up.
27, 28. I'm sorry. I forgot this is 14 team.
Yeah. I'll take 23. Yeah, so in essence, how I view it as is I kind of had around 4 to 5 first value for Hurts. So I kind of view it as Puka's 2 first. I got 2 first back. So in essence, kind of 4 first for Hurts, maybe a second for Kenny Pickett, and I threw in a second and third. That was just kind of more window dressing. I sometimes will throw more pieces back just to kind of feel like the other person will feel better about the trade to get it done.
And not only that, but the second and third, that should be later, especially with this trade now, because she has.
Well, they're later. They're not 25. So, and especially knowing what I know now that they might. If she tears it down, yes, she has some good pieces for sure, and she does not like to win. But not that Jeremy. I'm sorry. If I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but that was Mickey and I talked about your trade with JD Daniels, and one of the reasons why I did not pull the trigger with that owner with Mahomes early in the year is because his picks were trending late. Like I'm hoping here that with her first, like they should not be late. They should be mid to potentially early is how I was kind of viewing her first. Because that's one thing is when I do make trades, I'm always looking at, the owner, how they trade, how they like to play, where should those picks fall. And I can't predict luck, but I can predict skill and kind of make decisions based off that as well too.
Cool. So, Jeremy, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this trade because I had some thoughts, but I'll let you talk first.
That's fine. So first of all, I think where I'm a little intimidated by Jim is the amount of transactional fluidity that he has. See, without having any type of player bets or crushes or whatever it needs to be worded, you're continuing building up on a future that is never going to end. For example, you have traded Amon-Ra St. Brown. And for Amon-Ra St. Brown, you traded him. And you made this draft for Mahomes and Hurts. But you've made these trades for these pieces to be a future dynasty team. Yet all you are doing is continuously focusing on moving these trades and pieces for the first. Now, that's not the wrong strategy. I'm not downplaying that strategy. But to me, that's a little too fluid for me because I'm looking at it in more of a GM mode. Not to knock it, but let's just use it for the sake of the analogy. I look at it more of a Madden aspect. Where I need to have my core players, and I am building a little. I don't necessarily focus so much power, if you will, on picks. I don't, because the picks are a dime a dozen. Especially when you're in a 14-team league, you're looking at most the top 20 picks that are going to be able to be determined on. And then you've said it yourself, it's all luck. So I would much rather look at trading a first-round pick for, say, a Brandon Ayuk, who I know is going to be a producing aspect, who I know is going to be doing this, that, and the other, as opposed to say, I'm going to grab a first-round pick on, say, XYZ, and they end up not being anything.
But here's the issue. Go ahead.
No, so that's just, that. To me, to set that up with a preface, this is a little heavy. This I thought was like a really two-pick heavy for me. And I don't value the quarterback price as much as I do in this 14-team league. Like, I got Jared Goff. I'm happy with it. I was able to draft Daniels, and I've already flipped him for a couple firsts. I'll flip one of those firsts for a quarterback, and we'll see what happens. And we'll see what goes from there. But, like, I look at this. Okay, so let me take a step back here. I look at Puka Nacua as, in my opinion, the best player in this trade. I don't care this team is a 14-team league. I don't care how valuable quarterbacks are in this team quarterback. I look at Puka Nacua. I look at the longevity of wide receivers. I look at the longevity of that position itself. I think Puka Nacua is the best player in this deal. But then he got the first on top of it as well. I'm not saying this is a fleece, but looking at it, again, in my perspective, I don't value the picks as much in this aspect. So I don't think, in that sense, that Jalen Hurts is worth as many picks. I know that sounds kind of redundant, that I don't value picks, but I think he's worth too much. My point being is I see the 2 firsts here in these 2 seconds. You have just as much chance of Jalen Hurts carrying your dynasty team to a championship as you do any of those picks hitting. So I think it's a little pick heavy, but in the same sense, again, I don't want to keep repeating myself. I don't necessarily take picks so much of a credit.
The alternative side is, look what happened this week. Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, they were on my team. Their value just got crushed.
Right, but those players are, for lack of better terms, replaceable. You lose a Jalen Hurts on this team. Look at you've already said you're in a tailspin after that Jalen Hurts trade. And that's just the trade that he is going. If there's any type of injury aspect to a quarterback as well, I know right now Jared Goff gets hurt. If I was competing, I'm screwed. But I wouldn't have traded Jalen Daniels.
Yeah,
but to your point, I don't look too much into the depth of the first round picks. Like you're saying, I look at the players and the skills and the strategies and where there's going to rank. Those seeds of the picks that I've got for the Jalen Daniels could change 15 different times. I could trade those picks in those aspects.
But all you do is you take the information, and that will decide, decisions, right? Like that was my issue with when I was trying to trade Mahomes to that same owner was that if his picks end up 10-14, I get crushed by the trade. Like, so yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, it definitely is pick heavy, but at the same time, like those picks, you know what they're not going to do? They're not going to lose value. They're not going to get hurt. They're not going to tear an ACL. They're not going to decrease. They're a stock that I know I'm going to accrue value on over and over and over again until either I make the pick, B, I trade it, like I've already done with 2 picks to acquire Amon St. Brown, C, I get lucky and they fall into top 4, top 5, then that opens up so many more options for me. Like trading Jalen Hurts completely crushed my plan, and I like the idea of having 2 dominant quarterbacks and kind of building a team from there. But now all I need is one of those picks to hit quarterback wise, and then everything else is bonus.
And that's my point. That's my point. You just need one of those firsts to hit. That's it.
On top of that, because
if you can maneuver the value of the first enough, either in a draft pick or if you're own controlling, you can maneuver that pick to be a top 5, 6,
you can
7.
make the, and I have not done research on this, but you can make the argument that having Puka, Amon St. Brown, and Rashid Rice healthy next year, I might have one of the strongest wide receiver rooms already ready to go.
I agree, but my point to you is there is no way in hell that wide receiver room is that intact by the time of next year because you move so many times.
It is also true too, but
that's my point. But when are you going to stop building? Is my question.
So I will say this: he did this exact same thing in our other dynasty league, and now he's one of the top 3 teams.
That's fair.
Because he sold.
Is it the Denver Pittsburgh?
It's the DVP league, yeah. He sold some of those picks for a massive trade that we talked about last week, where he got AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb to accompany Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, and that's a great team to win a dynasty championship or 2 if it stays intact.
Right.
So that's my question. I guess. When would you stop there, Jim? Would you be content there?
No, because like I said, I don't make bets on players. I don't look at names. I look at what can I get for them. That's if you came for Puka today, let's make a trade. If you want to come for Amon tomorrow, let's do it. Like that's.
So this is one thing that me and Jimmy do definitely agree on is every player has a value. And if we can get that value plus, that person is gone.
Because
that's where I differ. Yeah. That's where I differ because I hold on to the dynasty aspect of it. That's where I focus on my dynasty leagues.
I'm a day trader. I'm a glorified day trader.
I like my transactions and stuff, but I'd like to hold on to guy. I'd much rather have a player that I know is going to get I traded for Montgomery. I know Monty's going to get me 2-3 years. I'd rather know I have that spot secure for 2-3 years pending injury than a 3rd round pick somewhere.
But at the same time, the way I look at it is Puka's undervalued right now. I took advantage of that.
Big time.
And yes, it blew up my plan, but you know what I have now? A new plan. And you know what I could have next week? A new plan. and by next week, I could have 37 starting quarterbacks that are all backups on my team. And that's just my beauty reality. The one good thing is the one thing that I have for me is all my receivers are young. There was a plan. There was a reason why I went after Puka and not other receivers or players on our team. I was trying to go after Bowers, but she was in love with Bowers. So I knew I'm not going to pay for love. I will pay for a first date, maybe some coffee, and just kind of see what happens. We'll date it out for a little while. And then, if I great, if we get along, you can stay on my team for a while. If not, I'll ship you out for the next one.
Jim, what I was going to say was we agree on that every player has a value. The difference is that I try to get players off of that value. You go for the
Well, you notice, but Mickey, you look at DVP. What have I been acquiring? Players.
No, because of the picks. That's what I was saying.
And now you're winning, though. But that's my point. Now you're winning.
I know, but it makes 0 sense. To Jeremy's point, it makes 0 sense for me to acquire players right now when all it takes is one injury, one
absolutely
stretch of poor play, and their value goes down. I put these picks on my bench, and I don't have to worry about them until the draft, until excitement kicks in January, until people are on the clock, and I'm great. I don't have to worry. But Puka, I worry about.
Absolutely. In this value conversation we talk about all the time, I love that. We have 3 minutes left, and I really want to talk about Jeremy's draft or trade. But I thought that you won that trade. Let me put it that way. But she didn't care about the picks.
Yes, that's my summary. Yes.
She didn't care about the picks, so she won that trade as well because she's going for it this year. They're blowing it up. and now it's one piece. I think Jalen Hurts is the second best player in fantasy because he's proven it. That's my quick synopsis on that. Jeremy, go ahead with your trade.
The one in golf.
1-for-1 straight up, right?
Yeah, the one in golf that was Kareem Hunt for Javon Sanders, the tight end out of Carolina. He was one of those player crushes that I originally started getting into. I liked him as a statistical aspect. I liked him coming into it because he's such a great pass catcher. He's not the best blocker, so that tells me that they will focus on a pass blocking tight end in their aspects. Tremble is not a bad pass blocking tight end, but I'm looking at him as a fantasy pass catcher, and right now he's putting up insane numbers. He's doing well. Does the quarterback situation scare me a little bit in Carolina? Hell yeah. But right now I'm looking at a team where Kareem Hunt can go absolutely anywhere at the end of the season. He could stay in Kansas City. The wheels could fall off in 2 weeks.
He could be a free agent next week when Pacheco comes back.
Exactly.
We don't know.
See, that's a story for another day. But I think Pacheco's best days are behind him. But we'll see. I think his injury is catastrophic. I think this is going to be more of a committee situation.
He's not going to help this year.
No, not at all.
For fantasy, for real playoffs, yes, but not for.
Yes, correct. Yeah. I think the Kansas City backfield is going to look a little different next year. So I think go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was glad to get your mindset on this because when I first saw the trade, I was like, "What is he doing?" But now,
I have blocked. See, this is the situation here where the value comes into way too much aspect. I blocked Hunt. I pitched Hunt. No one has sniffed Hunt. This is the only sniff I've got, and this could be the only sniff I do get. Because what happens if Pacheco does come back and does end up tearing it up? Well, I'm looking at it as a right now current value, and right now that was the only offer I had. I needed some tight end help behind Kincaid. Why not? Let's pull the trigger.
Okay. Absolutely, man. And unfortunately, we're under the gun. So thanks for joining us, Jeremy. For Jim, I'm Mickey, and this has been Dynasty from the Mountaintops.
See you guys next week.